Well, I started writing, gosh, it's been about 17 years ago now. Hard to believe it's been that long. And it wasn't something that I did actively to be a writer. It was, at first it started out just to get some sleep because I'd started reading books. Again, I had not read since college. And as a young mother, I didn't have a lot of time to read. So I'd started flying on airplanes again, reading, because I had time to read. And as I started to read, I started hearing and seeing scenes in my head, and it would wake me up at night, and it would bother me at work, and it was really getting annoying. And I thought, well, if I wrote it down, that it would go away. And so one day on vacation, I remember exactly where I was, I sat down with my laptop and I wrote the scene down. 3 hours later, my husband came to find me, and I had already written, I think I'd already written 10 pages. I put that book away when I got to 1,000 pages, started another, and then I wrote another one after that. And by the time I got to the third one, it had progressed more from more from just something to do in my spare time to a real hobby, something I really enjoyed. Still never thought, ever thought I could be a writer professionally. And that didn't happen until a couple years later when my husband pushed me to submit what I'd written to agents and editors. He came home, brought me a 25-cent paperback he'd gotten from a half-price bookstore called How to Market Your Romance Novel. And I did everything in the book and sent it out and got some good rejections, enough to tell me that there was something there. And I kept going. I joined a couple of writing groups, and that's how I got started. If I had to describe my own books, I would say it's a mixture of Law and Order and ER. You have the police procedural, the murderers, the detectives of Law and Order. You have the relationships between them at work, but you also have the level of personal drama that you might find in ER, where everybody's knows everybody off camera, on the show. A lot of science, technology, a lot of topical situations, but mostly a sense of community, of people who are there trying to do the right thing, serving the good of the people, but also having relationships amongst themselves. I've just started working on my 12th book, but I have 2 books coming out back to back. I Can See You was first released in hardcover last summer, but it comes out in paperback, I think it's April the 27th. And that actually started with an idea that a friend gave to me. We were working out one day, and she said, there's this guy I know who plays this virtual game where he can buy and sell property, and you can even get arrested in real life for the things that you do in the game. And that got me thinking. And I started researching. I didn't believe her at first. I had to go look at it. And so the whole concept of the virtual world, thinking you're anonymous when you're not, and the safety and the freedom that your perceived anonymity buys you, gave me the idea for that story. And then as the idea for the story came, I thought, well, who's the perfect character to be in this story? And I went back to one of my first books where there was a character who had been through a lot of trauma and had escaped into the virtual world as kind of her connection to the real world. And so she was a perfect choice for the character. So in that case, the book came first. The character Eve Wilson came second. But in the second book that's of that pair, called Silent Scream, the hero came first, and his name is David Hunter, and he has been the character everybody has asked for since he appeared in my first book. I've tried to write David's story a couple times. You Can't Hide was supposed to have been David's story, and the chemistry just did not work with him and the heroine, so I put it aside. I'm Watching You was supposed to be David's story, and it didn't work. And I finally had to come up with a story that was just his. And along the way, lots of things happened to him. And he became, by the time I ended up telling his story, he was a much different person than when I first introduced him. So it was more finding the right story for him and the right time to tell it. Silent Scream is a story of a blackmailer who overhears people talking and makes it his business to blackmail them so nobody else knows what they've done. So he will use what he overhears in a coffee shop to make people's lives very difficult. And that actually came about because I was writing a book in a coffee shop because they were doing some work on my house and I had to get away. And I never got any work done because there was so much going on around me. It turned out this was like the hotbed of sin for Sarasota. And lots of people would meet there after having met on the internet. A lot of internet dating couples. This was their safe place to meet for their first date. And I would sit there and I would listen, and I wouldn't get any work done because I was eavesdropping shamelessly. But they were talking really loud, so I didn't feel too bad. But I started thinking, if I were a bad person, I could make a lot of money off of this, because I bet you anything, some of those guys trying to get those women to go home with them are married. I bet. And I bet if I were a bad person, I could blackmail them. And that's how the story came about, of a blackmailer who overhears things, happens upon a situation where some arsonists have done a pretty bad thing. And he ends up blackmailing them for and making them do things for him that progress the story along. And David Hunter is the firefighter who finds a body in the first fire, and makes basically starting the murder investigation along. And David plays a predominant role in bringing, of course, bringing this guy to justice. I would hope after finishing one of my books that a reader, enjoys it. We're here to entertain as authors. I hope, though, in the very end, it's the characters that stick with my readers, that when they close the book, the characters stay with them for a long time. And it's always fun to meet the readers who will say, oh, the book where so-and-so and we talk about, my husband always finds it fun how my readers will come up and just talk to me like he says, it's like they're real people. Well, because for us they are. They're real people that just live in a book.